Hi guys, Mr. Hill here. I'm back in my laboratory, which can only mean one thing. We're back for some science. Today we're going to carry on looking at materials and their properties. And the question we've got today, can I investigate the difference between Newtonian and non-Newtonian liquids? We've got some quite wordy descriptions there. We'll cover these as we go through, so don't worry if you don't know quite what they are just yet. We all know the difference between a solid and a liquid. Yeah, right? So a solid, it has the shape of its own. It doesn't change on its own. It has to have something done to it. So for example, I have a packet of crisps here. That is a solid. It will stay in that shape until I do something to it. So if I do nothing to it, it stays like that. If I squash it, if I apply a force to it, it changes shape and it is now a squashed crisp packet. So solid has to have something happen to it for it to change shape. A liquid can change shape all on its own. It doesn't need to be pushed, squashed, stretched, hit with a hammer. It will move to fit whatever it gets poured into. Whether it's the cup you drink your water out of with breakfast in the morning, whether it's the bucket you put water in when you're helping around the garden, or whether it's the bath that you have at the end of the day. The water will make the shape of whatever you put it into. And generally, that's what all liquids do. So it will change the shape to match the container it's put into. Liquids will also flow. So if you get yourself a cup of water and in the sink, not on the carpet, pour it out, you can see the liquid will flow out of it. If you did the same with a solid, so if you had a cup and you hold onto it and you pour it over, it's not going to move on its own. It will stay in your hand. If you drop it, of course, then it will move, but you're applying a force to it that means it moves. Liquids will flow using gravity, so they will always flow to the lowest point. So going back to the vocabulary we had in our learning objective for today, Newtonian. So water, like most liquids, is Newtonian. It behaves in a predictable way. For example, I know if I have a bucket of water and I pour it down the sink, it's going to go down the sink. It's going to do what you would expect it to do. You can predict exactly what's going to happen with it. So the liquid has a constant, what's called viscosity. And viscosity is how easily a liquid pours. So it's how thick that liquid is. Water has a really low viscosity, whereas syrup, whether it's corn syrup or golden syrup or even honey, has a high viscosity and it pours a lot more slowly. You can see this if you get yourself a cup of water and a teaspoon. You can put the teaspoon in, you can scoop up some water and you can tip it and it'll come off the spoon really easily. With a spoonful of golden syrup, if you take the can, scoop up a spoonful and pour it, you'll see it comes off the spoon much, much slower. So this is why this is a perfect example of how to use golden syrup properly. Nice piece of treacle sponge, pour it over the top and it slowly rolls down the sides and you get bits and pieces that maybe have some golden syrup, some that won't have any, and it makes eating that lovely sponge much more enjoyable. So a non-Newtonian liquid or fluid is a substance that can copy the properties of a solid or a liquid. So it can do both things. It will flow, and under certain circumstances, it will react like a solid. So we also call these substances oobleck, which is a lovely word. It's one of my favorite words. And this experiment you're going to be doing is one of my favorites to do. So I'm really not happy that we're doing remote learning at the moment because I would have loved to have done this in class with you. So some questions for you to answer. Can you walk on water? Can you walk on custard? Might seem like strange questions, but actually one of them you can do. And I'm not thinking about the temperature outside and the water freezing. We're talking about normal, everyday, room temperature water. So it's as a liquid. Have a think. So at the end of the lesson, please take a moment to watch the video link in the description and from this week's plan. Learn how to walk on custard. So this is a fabulous investigation. As I said, you can do this at home. It can be messy. So if you're doing this inside, do it in the kitchen. Make sure you've got something to wipe up anything you spill with. So what you're going to need is corn flour or cornstarch. So I've found when I've done this before, the cheaper the corn flour, the better the result you get. So you can also use custard powder, but for today, we're going to use corn flour. So if you want to do the custard powder one, you might need to do a bit of research just to find out. The best thing to look for is how to make oobleck using custard powder, and that will tell you what you need to do. So it might be that the ratios are slightly different compared to what we're going to do today. So, as I said, this could get messy. You might want to put down some newspaper or have a cloth ready just in case you spill anything. Just remember, if you do make a mess, we're expecting you guys to clean it up, not for you to run off and leave it for your parents to clean up. So what we're going to need, 225 grams of corn flour, 230 millilitres of water, a large plastic mixing bowl. Spoon, I can use a spoon, but you can mix this just as well with your hands as well. And a small plastic food bag. That will be important at the end. So what you need to do, put the water into the bowl and slowly add in the corn flour. Now you might be better off actually putting the water to one side and putting the corn flour in first. I find when I make this, if I slowly add the water and I'm stirring it with my hand, I can feel when it gets to the right consistency, and you'll feel the liquid change. So you'll feel it go from being quite dry and then it will go being quite liquid. And then when you get it right, it feels really unusual. Keep stirring it, and as I said, I'd suggest using your hand. You get a feel for where it is. You can add some food coloring if you want to, but make sure you put less water in. So if you're going to add food coloring, add it at the beginning when you first start mixing it together, and then add the water. Otherwise you're going to have it overly done and it won't work properly. Keep mixing until the mixture is smooth and about the consistency of honey. If it's a bit too wet, if it's more like water, add some more corn flour. Or if it's almost rock solid, add a little dash of water, just a little dribble. You don't want to add too much in, because what we're creating here is what's called a saturated solution. So we covered solutions in our last lesson. By having a saturated solution, it can take on no more. It doesn't dissolve fully, so you can still see the white of the corn flour, but it is a saturated solution. They are mixed together. So what you can do, once you've got this down to the consistency, you can test it. So what you can do, if you take your hand and push it gently onto it, or just rest your hand and let the weight of your hand, you'll find your hand will sink into it. Your hand will be able to move very easily through the liquid, but you need to do it slowly. If you try and move quickly, what you'll find is the material starts behaving like a solid and your hand's almost stuck. You can experiment with this by maybe trying to punch the mixture. So if you do this hard and quickly, so just like bump like that, whereas most liquids will splash out of the bowl, this mixture turns hard. It resists your hand. This is because under the force of the punch, the water will move away from the corn flour and it leaves a dense patch of corn flour particles under your fist. So you'll punch it, take your hand away, there will be nothing. Your hand will be clean when you do this. What you can also do, and this is great fun, and this is the really messy bit, scoop some up. So really slowly put your hand in, scoop some up and roll it round in your hands, and you should be able to make it into a ball. So what you want to do is keep squashing it backwards and forwards between your hands like that, and it'll make a ball. And then what you can do, if you stop, hold your hand over the bowl like that, and what you'll find is that it will run down between your fingers and it'll drop down and it'll behave like a liquid, even though it was behaving like a solid a minute ago. What you can do as well, you can mess around with the mixture a little bit, add a little bit more water, add a little bit more corn flour, see what happens when you repeat this. Does it flow more slowly? Does it flow more quickly? How does it change the properties? So that could be a nice little extra investigation you can do while you're enjoying this. So what you need to do, take some photographs of your investigation and upload it to Tapestry. So there's no writing for this. You can just have fun. You can experiment with this and enjoy it. When you're finished, don't put this down the sink. It will block your sink. Put it in the bag. So the bag we had at the beginning, put it in there, tie it off at the top and put it in the bin. And also, if you have made a mess, make sure you tidy it up. Don't run off and go and do something else and leave your parents to clean up behind you. You made the mess, your responsibility to clean it up. And parents, if they have run off, just show them that bit again and remind them that I've said they have to do the cleaning up for this. So we've got a short clip linked in the description below. Have a watch of it to see what happens when you fill a swimming pool with a non-Newtonian fluid. It's a lovely investigation. It's quite funny and it's really enjoyable to watch. So as I said, links in the description below. So enjoy your investigation today. Make sure you get some photographs, put them on Tapestry so we can all have a look. Good luck. Enjoy your investigation. As always, we'll see you again very soon.